Commerce, Science and Transportation, Armed Services, Environment and Public Works, and Veterans Affairs. His prior state service, he was Alaska's Attorney General for a spell, and he was the Commissioner of the Alaska Department of Natural Resources. He has a degree in law, and he had 3 interesting clerkships, one with the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit here in Fairbanks, on the Alaska Supreme Court in Anchorage, and the United States Court of Appeals for the District.
Hello, Senator Sullivan. Nice to see you here this evening. Senator, you and I both have children, school-age children. As fathers, we do the best that we can to make sure that when they're older, they'll have good health, excellent education, and a strong work ethic. But what will they do with those things if their world is in chaos, if they cannot control what is happening around them? Just last year, the National Security Council declared man-made climate change as a current national security threat and will be increasingly a national security threat in the future. Just last month, the World Economic Forum declared climate change as the most likely and gravest threat to humanity. Now, I admit I didn't always believe humans could change the climate or weather, but if we can put a man on the moon, if we can put a robot on the planet Mars, I don't think it's a stretch to believe that we can put too much gas in the atmosphere. More and more people like me are making the connection. In fact, now, like so many corporations, I see the dangers of remaining in the status quo. And like corporations and others, I see that solutions are actually money-making solutions, and they're job-creating solutions. We've dithered too long. We need to rip climate change, the threat of climate change, out by its roots. As a father, nothing is important to me. And 30 years from now, when my kids ask me which side of the old climate change debate was I on, I will not flinch. And I also hope that I can tell them about a courageous senator from Alaska who stood up for all Alaskans and did the right thing. Will you be that senator? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, who's next?
I guess first I just quickly want to say that I am one of your constituents, and my feelings are a little bit hurt that you didn't take the time to have a general meeting. You spoke to the Republican Women's Club. In Anchorage, you're speaking to the Chamber of Commerce. So that's telling me that you think that those are your only constituents. I did a little math. You won by 48.8%. There is a 56% voter turnout, which means that you only got 26.6% of the vote, which means about 75% of people that were eligible voters didn't vote for you, but I really hope that you value our opinions as well, because we are many, and we want to work together. So please do not ignore us. One issue that I'm very concerned about is immigration reform. And I don't know if that's the correct buzzword or not, but to me, I think it's increasingly obvious that we do have an undocumented population in our country that is an integral part of our economy. And we need to be very honest about that, and we need to figure out how we can go forward with it. I think you've probably read the same things that I have about farmers who are very concerned that they're going to lose their entire worker population, that they have people that have come for year after year after year to pick the crops that we then buy in the grocery store, and that if they feel unsafe, they're going to leave. So we need to grapple with this honestly. Are we all willing to, if all the undocumented workers leave, do we have a population that will come in and pick the produce? Are we willing to raise the price 3 times that we're paying? Are we willing to pay the increased price of produce? I mean, and that's only one very small part of it, but I guess let's just talk, let's not be afraid to talk about that. Okay, thank you.
Corner, and I am a constituent of yours, Senator Sullivan. And I just have some yes or no questions. Will you stand with the American people and protect the Affordable Care Act? That is very important in Alaska. Yes or no? Will you make sure that the Affordable Care Act gets replaced, gets improved? Question 2, do you support having Steve Bannon as a member of the Principals Committee on the National Security Council? Yes or no? He replaced the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and another military person. That is a very serious, important, you talk about the security of our nation. The National Security Council provides the information that the president needs to keep us safe. And I don't think Steve Bannon has any expertise or particular knowledge. Another thing, question 3, should professional financial advisors be required to act in the interest of their client? That sounds like a no-brainer. And President Obama enacted that a professional financial advisor should act in the interest of their client, and you have tried to reverse that. I don't know. That's incredible. Yes or no? Do you support financial advisors being required to act in the best interest of their client? Question 4, will you support an independent, intermediate, bipartisan investigation of Trump's ties with Russia? We're continually hearing about the effect that the Russian government had on the election, and I think it requires more than just a congressional investigation. It requires a bipartisan. Those are my questions, yes or no.
Okay, Senator Sullivan, my name is Don Pendergrass from Fairbanks. I have only one question for you. You'll hear plenty from my friends and neighbors, but I'm very disappointed that you are not here to meet with us. And I think it's your job. You should be here. I just got a photograph of my mother at 93 years old in her wheelchair, attending a meeting of people that her senator, Sonny Perdue, would not meet with. And she's there holding her sign, you know, about immigration and Planned Parenthood and the Affordable Care Act, some of the things that we would like to talk to you about. But Sonny Perdue decided not to show up, and you are not here to meet with your constituents. I'm disappointed. I would like to see you here. I'd like to speak with you at some length about a number of issues, as my friends and neighbors would too. It's your job. Meet with us, please. Thank you.
Next, I am an Alaskan resident and one of your constituents. I've written to you, Senator Murkowski, and Representative Young on this issue. I'm very concerned about the conflicts of interest, that I understand that our president and vice president are exempt from those laws. And I am aware that both in the House and in the Senate there's a Presidential Accountability Act, and I have written to you asking for your support. I'd like to know what your thoughts are on the matter. I feel that we need to know, as Americans, what kind of background our president and vice president are making decisions on, and I'd like your support and your thoughts on that. Thank you.
My name is Jerry Maxwell, Senator Sullivan. I'm sure you've heard my name because I've written you multiple times. We disagree on a lot of things. I have received multiple form letters from you. Those form letters tell me that you're hearing from many Alaskans. And I just hope you start listening to us. You didn't listen on Betsy DeVos. And we need you to support us in the Affordable Care Act. We cannot get rid of that without a good replacement. We need that. We also need you to listen to your constituents. We're the ones, well, some people voted you into office, and if you expect to be voted in again, then you need to start listening and showing up. It's nice to talk to you as a cardboard piece, but I think you need to be here in person. Thank you.
Senator Sullivan, my name is Morgan. I live here in Fairbanks. I'm one of your constituents. And I want to know what plan you have in place to deal with all of the people who will lose care if you defund Planned Parenthood. Estimated 4,500 women in Alaska receive long-term federally funded access to birth control. What are you doing to ensure that those services are going to stay around? That's my question for you.
Senator Sullivan, my name is Bernardo Hernandez, and I've been living here in Fairbanks for more than 30 years. I have a couple of concerns. The first concern is that I'd like you to address, if you can, I ask you to address the incivility that seems to be burgeoning up in this country. I mean, with the defaming of the Jewish cemeteries, the discussion and the way people are being treated, the immigrants from Mexico and from Central America and Mexico and South America, and the people that are coming over from other countries located in war zones that are looking for refuge. The way we're treating these people is lacking decency, and I would hope and wish that you would say something. You're up there in the halls of the government in Washington, D.C., and I think it's important for you to say something to try to bring some decency to the discussion that we're having in this country. And the other thing that I'd ask you to do, it's concerning that we don't know what Mr. Trump's ties are. I mean, it's really disconcerting. And I think perhaps a lot of that is tied to his tax returns. And I know there is a way in Congress to take a look at those tax returns. And I think it's incumbent upon you to look at those and to see if there's any kind of things that are happening out there for the interest of our country. Thank you very much.
Okay. Hi, Senator Sullivan. I call your Fairbanks office pretty much every day. I'm Rachel D. Temple. I live here in Fairbanks. And I would like to just say, just so there's no doubt, I'm not paid to be here, but you are. I started a petition to get people to sign it to ask you to schedule a town hall, and the only response that I've gotten so far is this. I would like a better response than that. I hope that you are currently planning town halls in the next recess. The other thing I'd like to ask you about, I ask you about things every day, but this is one I haven't probably asked about.
I'm one of your constituents. I live here in Fairbanks. I've lived here about 18 years. Where to start? There are very, very many things I'm unhappy with this administration. Probably my most close to my heart problems are environmental concerns and international relations. And Mr. Pruitt is head of the EPA, really? I know that the EPA has often been considered a thorn in Alaska's side. I think it still does important work. I don't think that the release of coal ash into streams is a really good idea in the long run. I know that Alaska coal and oil production is very important. I think it's very short-sighted. We're gonna have problems. And it's been well documented what kind of problems we're going to expect. Many things that have shown up follow the predictions, which have been often very conservative. And if, for instance, the business aspect is a concern, let's take sea level rise. What does it take to move a village like Shizmarov? A few $100 million? So what's it going to take to move a city like Miami? So thank you for your attention.
There must be more questions.
Hello, Senator. I'm Elise Guttenberg. I'm a constituent, and first of all, I would like to echo many of the people here who have said that I'm very sorry that you don't feel strongly enough about your constituents here in Fairbanks to need to come and speak to us when you've been invited. It's not difficult. I have many, many things that I could begin to mention, but I decided to focus on just one question. I wrote to you about the confirmation of Betty DeVos. You obviously supported it. You obviously recommended her. But I'd like to read a section of the letter that you sent to me, and I know many of your other constituents received the same exact letter. And in the letter that you said you spoke with her, and she reassured you, and she reassured you that she will leave the decision to enact and implement any type of school voucher system to the states and local communities. She will not require states to adopt a federal voucher system, which under current federal law, the Department of Education is not authorized to do. So my question to you is, it sounds to me like that means you support a voucher system and you honor and respect her decision to enact and create and support a federal voucher system. And I'd like to know if that's indeed what you're saying, because her commitment that she won't require states to means that she will leave that decision to every single state, that public dollars for education will then be diverted to private schools and religious schools and taken away from our public neighborhood schools. That in every state we can have a different system that values education and leaves it behind. I don't happen to think vouchers are a good idea. I don't think that they give a service to our kids, to the future, to the education they need. And I believe that that's exactly what you're saying you support. I'd like to hear if that's what you do. Thank you.
Hi, Senator. You and I have had many conversations. I've been in your office. You've been in my office when I was mayor. I understand that you stood with my opponent in the most recent state Senate elections. That's what we get to do. But what I get to do now is speak to you about my concerns. I hope that you can take some action, and I'd like to hear that you are going to take some action on Steve Bannon being put on the National Security Council. I can't believe that he gets to be on there, and those that have incredible experience on those issues that come before the National Security Council are asked to not attend the meetings because it's not in their venue. This has to be stopped. I hope you can put a law together. I'd like to hear that what you're going to do to try to change that. On your Commerce Committee, the changes to the fiduciary responsibility that financial advisors may not have to have anymore because the president thinks it's a good thing to change. You need to be acting on those and reversing that action. There's a lot of issues out there. We all talk about them all the time. You hear them. I'm sure you're reading all of the various publications. One thing on science, I know you're a science guy, and I know you're concerned about science in Alaska. Some changes, when I hear President Trump say that NASA is only going to be used for space, you know that that is not their only work. What they're doing about our changing climate in the state, you're aware of it. You're on many of the military concerns across the world that talk about this. For NOAA and NASA, make sure you continue to allow them to do the work that they're doing for our state. Again, you and I have had those discussions. We know what's important for our state. I'd like to hear that you're going to step up to it and make sure that we just don't watch all of these programs that we have in place fade away, either because of funding or because President Trump thinks it's the right thing to do. You know it's not the right thing to do. Thank you.
Hi there, Senator Sullivan. You called the Russian involvement in our election and its intrusion within our politics and its relationship to our president as a distraction. That intrusion led to the dismissal of our National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn. Could you explain to us why that's a distraction? Thank you.
Dan Sullivan. My name's Susan Hanson, and I guess I have so many things to talk about. I guess I'll try to limit myself. But first of all, your Secretary of Education had no idea what individual act that allows disabled students to have a free and appropriate education. She had no idea what it was. It's individual education. It's IDEA. And so if you require or somehow a disabled student gets a voucher to go to a private school, what happens is that they lose that protection. They no longer are able to have a free and appropriate education. So it's totally inappropriate. And it's totally inappropriate for a Secretary of Education not to even know what that law is. And the other thing regarding Jeff Sessions, Jeff Sessions was actually called by Steve Bannon to be the leader of the white nationalist movement for years. And I just don't understand putting a person like Jeff Sessions as the head of the Department of Justice. It's terrible, and I don't agree with it. I don't think he can be trusted to observe other groups of people, gay people, lesbians, even people with disabilities, or black people. I don't think he will treat them equally, and I think it was a terrible mistake to vote for him. Thank you.
Good evening, Senator Sullivan. My name is Tom Green. I live at 607 Bullion Drive in Fairbanks, Alaska. And I'm old enough to remember that when the EPA was established, and it was established in 1970, actually established by a Republican president. And at that time, people were very interested. It was a bipartisan effort to make sure that the country had clean water and clean air and a clean environment in which our children could grow up. And I'm very concerned about the appointment of the new chief of EPA, Scott Pruitt. I understand that if it were up to him, he would like to dismantle a lot of the EPA and dismantle a lot of the regulations. Not all regulations are bad regulations. In fact, a lot of regulations are good and they protect the common person, the common taxpayer. And I'm very concerned about that. And there's nothing wrong with having connections to oil and gas, but if you have stronger connections to oil and gas, I think that's a real problem. You should have really connections to the normal citizen out there who really is interested in a clean environment. Thank you.
Senator Sullivan, my name is Joe Ransdell Green, and I'd just like to say, considering that the current administration, especially Scott Pruitt at the EPA, is not considering climate change as an issue that will be a detriment to our species, I think it's up to Congress, yourself included, to take leadership on this issue, considering the undeniable evidence that greenhouse gases are changing our climate. And myself, as a young Alaskan, stand to lose a lot in this century with climate changing in our state, and the communities on the coast standing to lose a lot due to this issue will be first impacted. So I think that you should stand up and take issue and pay attention to the undeniable science. Thank you.
Sullivan, my name is Tom Weingartner, 3130 Chinook Drive, Fairbanks, Alaska. I've written to you a number of times on this issue and haven't gotten a response. I'm very much concerned that until we understand President Trump's tax returns, we don't know who owes him, who he owes, or who owns him. And I can't be certain that he followed the law in filing his taxes. I think this is a fundamental trust issue that represents an existential threat to our democracy, and I think Congress can and must do something about requiring that he release his tax returns. Thank you.
Good evening, Senator Sullivan. My name is Richie Music. I moved to Alaska 50 years ago, and I'm concerned about so many things in this Trump administration, I wouldn't know where to begin, but I'll keep it to just a few. I'm concerned and don't quite understand the reason to defund Planned Parenthood when federal funds can't be used for abortion anyway, but there are so many other services that our young daughters depend upon. Reproductive information, STD testing, all of these things. I do not understand why we're attacking that part of Planned Parenthood. I'm also extremely disappointed in your support of Betsy DeVos for education, whatever. Anyway, there are so many members of the Trump cabinet that are being appointed that are really do not seem to be well qualified, but she certainly had a dozen reasons not to support her, and I really respect Lisa Murkowski for listening to us and voting against her. And then the last one that just terrifies me is the future of the EPA. I attended UCLA in the 60s. This was before the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act. I remember one day going to the UCLA swimming pool to swim laps because I needed some exercise. I had to get out of the water because my lungs were burning so badly. And I am so pleased to see the effects that have gone on since we have put through the Clean Air and the Clean Water Acts. And now you are standing there as a threat to me for our EPA and everything we have gained to date. And I hope that you look after the welfare of all of America and stand up and protect what we have so far as our environment goes. And yes, climate change is real.
Senator Sullivan, we've had occasion to talk in the past. My name is Mike Music. I thought I would follow my wife since I certainly agree with her, and so far I've agreed with almost everything that has been said tonight. So just to get to the point, one subject that has not been brought up is the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. I'm very, very concerned that we leave that intact as one of the last few intact wilderness areas in North America, maybe even in the greater part of the world. In talking to experts on this subject, I've learned that Alaska may never receive any income from the oil beneath the surface of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. For one reason, it's federal land, and it's considered a greenfield in our tax structures. And as such, by the time 5, 10, 15 years from now, when they actually start drilling, there'll be a number of years far into the future before our royalties actually even start kicking in for the state of Alaska. So even though the recently passed HJR 5 in the State House claiming that Alaskans support opening the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, I think you'll find that there is a large constituency of yours that don't want to see that happen, especially since we're going to get almost nothing for it. Yes, there'll be jobs. Yes, we'll be getting steel from China, since we don't have the capacity to make that type of pipe in the United States at this point. So I don't see how it's going to help our economics. It's certainly not going to improve the environment at a time when we should be transitioning from fossil fuels to renewable energy. And we're going to be way behind the curve in terms of getting an additional source of fossil fuels into the market, which I'm told will be at most a 6-month supply for the United States. It just almost seems a sin to me to deface sacred ground, and it's sacred to many of the cultures in Alaska, and to some of us too. So please, don't consider the resolution from our senators and representatives a clear picture of what the people actually believe and think about this whole process. As I said earlier, I agree with almost everything people have said tonight, so I'll just cut it off at that. But consider that. Thank you.
Glad to see that you're here in cardboard at least. What's your name? My name is Fran Maurer. I'm a 46-year Alaskan resident, and for most of that time I've been a hunter here. And I understand you didn't have time to come and meet with us tonight, but you did take time to go over and address the Alaska Board of Game. And unfortunately, the Alaska Board of Game, as you know, is made up of all hunters, hunting guides, and trappers. Only 14% of Alaskans buy hunting licenses. The other 85% of Alaskans have some interest in other uses of wildlife besides hunting or trapping. It's a great tourist industry, and I'm very concerned that you are supporting a resolution to override the Fish and Wildlife Service regulations regarding the taking of predators in our wildlife refuges. These methods are extreme, beyond the pale. I've watched these regulations develop and get worse and worse as the Game Board has become more and more insular and not balanced by other interests in wildlife here in Alaska, such as wildlife viewing, photography, tourism. We've decimated the wolves that people see in Denali because of killing bears and wolves on state land right outside of the park. And now, if your rule goes through, we'll be having those same programs going on in all of our wildlife refuges. I just want you to know that I disagree with your approach on this issue. Thank you.
So at this point, I was thinking that we all could do a stop and call. I've got the numbers for, oh, by the way, my name's Morgan. I'm the field organizer for Planned Parenthood here in Fairbanks. I have the numbers for all of our congressional delegation, Murkowski, Sullivan, and Don Young, if you could just pass those around. So there's a few things that have occurred today that that we find really interesting. First of all, Sullivan didn't show up to our town hall, so I'd like all of us to call him and ask him why he's not here, and bring up any issues with him otherwise that you might have. Also, Senator Murkowski, while addressing the Alaska State Legislature today, stated that she would not vote to defund Planned Parenthood, which we think is really great. This is her first public stance other than previously when she said she does not support broadly defunding Planned Parenthood, which, you know, we weren't quite sure what that meant. So we're really glad that she took a public stance on this, and she also said that she would not vote to roll back the Medicaid expansion as well. And so those are two really great things, and we'd like to lift her up for that. So if you all could take a moment right now to call Sullivan, ask him why he's not here, and to call Murkowski to thank her for doing both of those things. Yeah, that would be great. I don't know if you guys want to do that now or as people leave.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, let's wrap it up first.
Okay.
About the art, unless somebody else wants
go ahead.
Oh, one more.
Hello, Senator Sullivan. I'm Jane Ransdell, and I did stop by your office to a few weeks ago, to voice my deep concerns with the appointment of Scott Pruitt to the head of the EPA. Climate change may be a controversial subject politically, but it's not, scientifically, it's not a controversial subject. And I would also like to say that I just want to ask you to consider very solemnly your position in history and what that will be. If this is a time that's certainly going to be remembered and noted well in history, and I hope that you will consider, if nothing else, how you will be noted in history, because you could be a hero or you could be a villain. And that's all I have to say, and I hope I will have a chance to talk with you in person sometime while you're in Fairbanks. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paige Poston. I grew up in the Fairbanks North Scarborough School District, and I'm currently a student at UAF. And recently, education in Alaska just hasn't seemed like a priority to our government. And sexual education in high schools is especially distressing. And so the Alaskan people, I feel, need a commitment from you, Senator, to vote against defunding Planned Parenthood like Lisa Minkowski did this morning, and a commitment to prioritize primary and secondary education for our children and our young adults.
Senator Sullivan, nice to see you. You look a little flat, but I share many of the concerns I've heard here tonight, but there are two things that I see happening that really concern me about our national government. First of all, the Affordable Care Act, while not perfect, was a good beginning and needs to be improved, fixed, whatever. Didn't work quite right, but I happen to have attended a conference on healthcare in Alaska a number of years ago, back in my working life, and we were told by the administrator of the Providence Hospital in Anchorage that those of us who were providing insurance for our workers paid 30% more than was necessary to cover the cost of those that didn't have insurance. And if we repeal and don't fix, we're going to put that same 30% right back on the bill. We can't afford that. So we need to keep affordable care in place, improve it, and fix those holes that don't seem to be working. The other thing that really grabbed me here just recently was the executive order that President Trump signed that no longer is going to require a financial advisor to act in the interest of his client. Duh. I don't even understand how that concept can even be considered. But let's look at what's happened in America in recent years. Since I left the workforce, more and more employers are leaving the defined benefit pension kind of system and moving to IRAs and other forms that require the individual to monitor his investments. These are young kids out there trying to make a living and don't have time to gain the expertise of how to invest their money. If they can't hire an investment manager or an investment person to help manage that and not have their interest as their primary concern, we've really missed the ball. So I encourage you to, as a senator, to do something legislatively to reinforce that whole process. Get it out of the whims of the president to sign on and sign off, because that pendulum doesn't swing very well. So I wished you were here. Glad to see you though.
My name's Kevin. I make coffee here. And I just want to say I grew up in like a really conservative household and grew up very conservative Republican just my whole entire life, mostly because that's how I was raised and that's how it was being in Orange County, California. Just a lot of just differing viewpoints. And I live here now, and as a lot of people, they come from all over the place because we're trying to get away, and there's this sense of like freedom that's here in Alaska. And I've really seen a lot of that kind of like the conservative mindset of where it comes from sometimes a very religious point of view, but then it's very hypocritical in the way that you decide that you want to interact with the people in the society that are around you. I see like the refugee crisis in Syria being one of the huge issues, one of major problems for our generation with this refugee crisis and just the sheer scale of it and the fact that honestly this country was built on diversity and built on just the people who are coming and trying to escape something to try to make a new life for themselves here in America, and we're making that very difficult for them. And now with the travel bans and the restrictions, I feel like we're actually, you know, we're not making America great again, we're making America how it was, and it was the things that we didn't like about how America was, and now we're trying to go back and do those things again. And so what I would really like to see is, like, you know, you have your morals, you have your compassion for people, obviously that's why you're in service. So I think the only thing I would just ask is that you would just look out for the least of these, the people that have no voice, the people that don't have the voice to be able to speak up the way that they're able to speak up, so that's why everybody else is speaking up for them. So just, I ask that you just listen to the minority here in Alaska. I know we're not the majority a lot of times, but we do have a voice and you still represent us, so that's just all I want to say.
I'm back, Senator Sullivan. So recently it seems that both PBS and the National Endowment for the Arts are in danger of being cut. They're like minuscule portions of the federal budget with huge impact. PBS has long provided broadcasting services to rural Alaska when there have been no other, and the Alaska State Council and the National Endowment for the Arts affects us all at the grassroots level here in Fairbanks. I'm sure it's affected your family as well. Money goes from the federal level to the State Council on the Arts, to Fairbanks Arts Association, to Fairbanks Light Opera Theater, to Fairbanks Drama Association, to artists in the schools. So it really affects all of us, and I'm just going to assume that you're a supporter of the arts. And as I think you can see here, while we are a very passionate lot, we are also civil, and I really do believe that we could have a really constructive conversation in April. I'm really looking forward to that, and I bet we'll have a lot of common ground. So, thank you.
I'm Marilyn Russell, and I care a lot about the environment, and it's ludicrous that people think that it isn't real. And I have some pictures that I'll send that I want you, Senator Sullivan, to please show to President Trump. It's dome homes that were built in Marco Island in 2010. And in this picture, they are cement domes, and they're on pillars that are like 8 feet high. And then here it is, 2017, and they are underwater. And the tide can be part of it, but I am sure that, and the slogan in the newspaper shows that it is caused by the water rising. And I went online to see where Marco Island is with Mar-a-Lago in Florida, and it's right across the way. So President Trump needs to be alerted. Thank you.
So our takeaway from this is that we really want to put the pressure on for a town hall with him actually here in April during the next recess. So in the next few days, we're going to look at all the calendars and try to pick a day, and then we're so far out that hopefully he can come, and we'll just keep pressuring, and everyone call and write letters and show up, and yeah.
Has anyone heard why he wouldn't be with anyone this trip?
When they called me back, I was told I don't have control of the schedule. I don't know what the schedule is. I don't